The more screens you have, the faster you can go. One of the biggest lessons from Cannonball is that speed along a road trip doesn't necessarily come from how you drive, it actually comes from how you prepare for that drive. And I love road trips. I go on them as often as I possibly can, especially when they involve probably unreliable but interesting supercars. And so I've done a lot of that over the last 18 months with Car Trek, and exotic car rallies are another way that I really just enjoy to get out with a group of like-minded enthusiasts and have an awful lot of fun driving. But of course, as you prepare for a challenge like an exotic car rally, a huge amount of time should be spent on exactly how you set the car up in order to achieve or maximize the odds of achieving the best possible outcome. And obviously the first objective, anytime you're going to drive a fast car along a public road, is how do we minimize hopefully unplanned and unnecessary interactions with law enforcement. And for me, and I know for Arnie Toman, who is going to be my co-driver this year on the Gold Rush Rally, the police countermeasures are a huge part of that equation. It's something that we really enjoy trying to stay ahead of the curve on and understanding what the latest and greatest and best products are. And I will concede to being a little bit of a dinosaur in that world lately, because a lot of the countermeasures and the things that I used in our 2013 record that I still own and will occasionally put in a car before a road trip to see some family are not necessarily at the bleeding edge anymore. And so Arnie has continued to just study and make sure that he fully understands that. And so for Gold Rush this year, we were going to take the Paris Hilton SLR. I've grown to just absolutely love that car, and honestly, it had spent about 3 weeks in the shop in a video that you may have seen with Tyler Hoover, needing a few things, and we obviously did not do all $34,000 worth of stuff they told me that it might need, but I did everything that it really did need to be safe, to hopefully be reliable, and to be as ready as it could be mechanically for what was going to be about 5,000 miles round trip. We were going to go from Atlanta up to New York, several stops along the way, back to Atlanta, and then eventually to the finish line out in Dallas. And so it was going to be an amazing trip. And honestly, I thought the SLR was kind of the perfect car for it. It was going to be, I think, the oldest car on the rally, except for one of the sponsors brought an R33 Skyline. But in terms of an exotic car, it was certainly going to be not necessarily the same thing as taking a brand new Ferrari, McLaren, Lamborghini, or something like that, like most of the people who do these rallies do. They're all under warranty, low mile, fairly new exotic cars. We were going to be there in something that would have been perfect if you were taking it 10 or 15 years ago. But regardless, I felt like the SLR was the perfect choice. It had a very large trunk, but I had a very, very narrow window between when we wrapped filming Car Trek 5 and when I would need to depart to meet Arnie up in New York with the car, hopefully as ready as possible. Arnie had reached out to the guys at Redenzo, and they had sent us the latest, greatest, best on the market radar detector and laser jamming system. They take the AL Priority, which is the best laser jamming system, and they integrate all the software with their radar detector, which again is the best on the market, becomes fully built in, invisible to anybody who might want to look for it, and great at long range detection. And so that came to me in a box, along with the newest, best Uniden police scanner, which is amazing. We had that last year when we did Gold Rush, also as Team Mod Find with Arnie's S6, the one that they set the latest COVID record in. And so that scanner, rather than the way we had to deal with the one that's in the CL55, where you had to program it for hours and put frequencies on different banks, this one, literally, you just turn it on and you hear cops. And so that, combined with the best radar detector and the best laser jamming system, and then all the other accoutrements that we might want to prepare the car for the road trip, meant that we really did have the best prepared car for this rally. And that's something that makes us proud. It also makes us feel like we're as well prepared as we possibly can to, again, achieve the best possible outcomes in terms of getting there safely, getting there quickly, and not having anything to deal with after you get home. And so I needed to get all of that installed, and the best place to turn to was Cartoons. They had prepared the CL55 in the years leading up to the Cannonball record. They also did most of the electronics install in the S55 that I won the 2904 with and set the New York to LA competitive event record in 2015. And so they were certainly the go-to guys. They're also a Redenzo dealer, so they were very happy to have them installing it. And so I took it to them, and they said it was going to take them 22 hours of work to install this thing, but we only had about 2 days, and I still needed some other things to get done to the car, and I had to pack. And so they got that 22 hours done by several people kind of working on the car at the same time in just 10 hours. And so I go back, I pick up the car, but Glossit had spent over 100 hours detailing this car in order for it to be delivered to me perfectly after I bought it from the auction that was representing it as being the Paris Hilton SLR. And so it looked too good to possibly expose to all the rock chips and things. And so I needed a clear bra put on the car. But normally, again, that's a multi-day process. So I called the guys over at AP3. They've been a supporter and a sponsor of VINwiki over the years. And I said, hey guys, I need a full frontal clear bra, but I need it done fast and dirty. You have 4 hours. And yeah, honestly, they get excited about challenges like that. Obviously, I'm not gonna get mad if there's a speck of dirt or a bubble or anything like that. I just want the car to be protected. And to be honest, I didn't see any issues with it. They did the rockers, they did the hood, they did the bumpers, fenders, everything. And the car was really ready to go. And so I go home, and then the next step in really preparing your car for a road trip is how you lay everything out. And so I knew that we were gonna need 12-volt splitters, which required removing part of the center console in order to have constant access to the plug there, and then to make sure that we had backups for that, cords routed everywhere with mounts on the windshields for our iPhones and tablets and things like that, because Arnie was gonna bring both an Android tablet to run an app that would allow us to detect planes and also see further out. It would kind of sweep ways for alerts further than they would normally alert us through the app. And then also he was gonna have an iPad to run Waze on a bigger screen. So he's got his high-powered, stabilized military spec binoculars. And so again, we had every gadget that you could reasonably deploy in a car in that amount of time, and it was ready to go. I was excited. You know, again, we were representing Team Modifying, which was one of our sponsors this year for VINwiki. It's an enthusiast marketplace to buy, sell, trade, new, used, OEM aftermarket car parts, and so you can download it at the link in the description. And we were just so grateful that so many supporters of the channel had allowed us to have one of these experiences. And that's one of the things about these exotic car rallies. It's one of the things about any kind of epic drive in a really, really cool car is it has this once in a lifetime feel, but eventually you kind of get to make a habit of it. And so it was one of those things that I was so excited to be able to kind of put all the pieces together. Arnie was going to be my co-driver for the first half. My wife was hopefully going to be my co-driver for the second half. It's going to be just an amazing trip, about 11 days all in between my round trip of getting there and again, about 5,000 miles. And so the SLR had been driven about 2,000 miles in the prior 10 years. This was going to be quite a test for it, again, as the oldest car on the grid. But we get up to New York, we get everything laid out, and you know, we say in the cannonball world that the more screens you have, the faster you can go, because it just makes you feel like you're prepared. And again, the preparation is how you achieve good speed. Now, of course, an exotic car rally is not really a race. There's nobody that gets a trophy for being first. Nobody really cares. However, anytime you're driving in a big group of exotic cars, the best way to avoid kind of the detection of police, getting into issues with other traffic on the road, and just anything else that could happen is to stay out front. Now, the people in the middle of the pack think that the people who are out front driving are going 150 miles an hour the whole time, and that's simply not true. All you need to do is leave on time, not spend too much time stopped, and just stay generally ahead of the pack and cruise along at 90 to 100, and you will very, very easily stay out in front. The people in the back will get a little bit jammed up, a little bit more clogged up. They'll wait more whenever they stop in larger groups, and that means that they have to go occasionally 140, 50, 60 miles an hour if they want to stay as close as they possibly can to the front of the pack. Now, again, that's not a huge sensitivity. We don't have anything to prove. We're just here, honestly, to have a good time and to add to the event. So we're trying to help mark cops on Waze and all the other apps that we use in order to make sure that everybody has the best experience possible. And we did, honestly. Gold Rush was, as always, an epic adventure, and we absolutely enjoyed it. I can't wait for the next one. Now, I will say, things didn't go well in terms of the car, and that's not wildly surprising, but they didn't go badly in the ways that we thought they might. It's always a new adventure, and you never know exactly what's going to be around the next turn or whatever's going to be behind the next error light, of which there were aplenty. And so I'll talk about that another week in another story, but regardless, it was a great trip with some great friends, meeting a lot of new friends, reuniting with a lot of old ones, and that's the experience. It's like a very family environment in terms of how you network, how you get to know people, and how you really do experience the country and the drive on one of these events. And you know, you can criticize exotic car rallies for a lot of things, but the guys at Gold Rush put together what is certainly the most prestigious and the most significant exotic car rally that's happening this year. And so I was honored and privileged to be able to get to go this year, and it was an amazing fleet of cars out there. I mean, just everything you could imagine right off the pages of DuPont Registry, and an amazing time. And so thank you all so much. I did a couple of live streams while we were there, posted a lot on Instagram, so thanks for following along. But I'll tell you more about how strangely and how badly things went next week. Shopping for insurance can be an absolute nightmare, but it doesn't have to be thanks to Policy Genius. They're our sponsor for this month at VINwiki, and you can visit them at the link in the description below. You tell them a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your property, and they find the best deal by shopping amongst all the major carriers at the same time. In fact, you can bundle things like homeowners insurance and auto insurance, and the average user that bundles both of those things saves about $1,100 a year. So be sure to check them out and thank them for their support of VINwiki.